Hey everybody, and welcome to Wake Up College Football. My name is Dan, the beautiful face seated next to me. That's Richard Johnson. We have a fun little exercise here today. We have a couple of major coaching openings. We've got a few openings that may not be openings either right now or later on down the road, so we are just guessing. And we 100% do not celebrate coaches and staffs losing their jobs, but the rumors are out there, so we are going to address potential openings as well as current openings, and we're going to do it fantasy draft style. Does that make sense to you?
Little snake draft action.
Let's snake
I can dig it.
Okay, let's start here with the biggest job, UTEP. Let's talk Niners.
It was the first job to open. They got in on the coaching carousel early.
There it is. Let's talk Florida Gators, because this is a job, obviously, that you have a lot of interest in as somebody from Gainesville, Florida, and an alum of Florida. So, who is your #1 overall draft pick for Florida?
Dan, for the Florida job, I think you've got to win a certain way, and that's with offense, and that's the obvious thing. But I think besides that, you have to win by being a little bit punchy. You know what I mean? You got to be able to kind of go after opponents. You got to be able to kind of say what you mean in the media and kind of lay it all out there. And that's another reason. Those are two reasons why I zero in on Dan Mullen, honestly. And I know that things that are being reported right now say Mullen might not be in the race or might not be close to getting the job.
Could be not, could be so. It's how it works. Yeah.
I get it. But if I'm taking everything equal and just drafting a coach that I think best fits where the program is now and what it needs moving forward, I think I'd take Dan Mullen.
All right, it makes sense. He's been there. He fills that sort of need role of offense, and there's a familiarity there. I'm going Chip Kelly because it's a huge-time job, which he is not getting in the NFL anytime soon. He has the background in college. His offenses have been fantastic, and I think the presence of Steve Spurrier sort of mitigates the glad-handing sort of off-field responsibilities that you would have at a huge place. So I'm going Chip right there. Boom.
So you think Kelly's the right guy for the job based on, is he able to kind of commandeer and command off the field?
Yeah, enough so that, yes, I think, and he gets along well with players, and I think he's going to build a good staff wherever he ends up going eventually. I think he was going to be okay. I think he has grown into that role and has been an NFL coach. So off-field responsibilities are nothing new.
My thing with Kelly is, and this is not to throw cold water on the people that want Kelly to Florida, but I wonder what Chip Kelly's offense is going to look like.
Sure.
And what Chip Kelly's program looks like in 2017. He's been in the NFL for a few years. He hadn't coached in college since 2012.
Right.
And it is never going to look like it looked at Oregon because of the confluence of Nike money, the confluence of how cool that program was when it was running and all that kind of stuff. I think the NFL and the way he had to scheme in the NFL, maybe that's something that changes his outlook and his philosophy. And you may be getting a different Chip Kelly, not a better Chip Kelly, not a worse Chip Kelly, but a different Chip Kelly than you had in Eugene in 2012.
Fair enough. Let's stay with the NFL. Tennessee Volunteers. My pick as we snake around is John. It's not. It's not at all. It's Gary Patterson for Tennessee. It's Gary Patterson because I think
struck out in 2012.
He struck out in 2012. He is at the arguably third biggest job in his own state with Texas and Texas A&M both there right now, and he's done a fantastic job in Fort Worth at TCU. I think he is. I don't know if he's looking, but I think he could be interested in a huge-time job. Like I said that phrase before, but like Tennessee very clearly is. Defensive mind who hires offensive coaches really well. Gary Patterson's my pick.
For me at Tennessee, I look at Bobby Petrino because of what he did at Western Kentucky, at Arkansas, and at Louisville. Petrino has proven that he can win at places that are tough regionally to recruit to and win at.
And Tennessee's pretty good in terms of recruiting and everythting like that.
Yeah, and if Butch Jones had any, if there was any positives to Butch Jones' tenure, it was that I think Butch Jones slightly over-recruited or out-recruited what you should probably project Tennessee at a level of recruiting prowess. East Tennessee is not a natural base of talent. North Carolina is not getting any worse in a sense of Wake's getting better. North Carolina, tough year for them this year, but getting better.
Clemson's right there.
Clemson and NC State, and I think South Carolina will at least become more competent on the recruiting trail with Muschamp. So I think you've got some things that make Tennessee's job a little bit tougher than it was when Butch took over. There's also Georgia locking down the state of Georgia recruiting-wise. So those are things that make the Vols job just tougher. And I think that it's not the job, we know it's not the job that it was in 1999. It's a different landscape. But I think that despite what Louisville has been this year, Petrino can coach. Petrino can coach his tail off. And I think if I'm Tennessee, I want to draft a guy like Petrino.
All right, let's stick with you. Nebraska. What move does Nebraska make now that Bobby Petrino, Chip Kelly, and Dan Mullen are all off the board. Nebraska, obviously, physically removed from those schools.
I am a guy who thinks that Nebraska needs a niche.
Okay.
I think that natural base of talent that you go into in Texas isn't there anymore. You're not in the Big 12. You can't promise mama that you're going to be in Texas three times.
Right.
Nebraska fans like a little option action.
Oh, wow.
I think maybe you want to go Ken Niumatalolo at Navy, but no. I'm going to go Paul Johnson.
Whoa!
I'm going to go Paul Johnson to bring a saltiness to the Nebraska program.
I'm going to go with the obvious pick. Still left on the board after Florida passes him up in our exercise, Scott Frost.
Yeah?
I'm going to go Scott Frost, and it's not because I think he necessarily is dying to go back home, but because the money will be there. He has his own offensive niche for Nebraska, as they've struggled some on offense, or a good amount on offense this year against the better teams they've played. So I'm going to go Scott Frost there. My other consideration was Matt Campbell, not terribly far away at Iowa State, but his
Midwest
buyout,
to Midwest. Yeah.
Yes, his buyout is enormous. It's about $9 million, which is a lot to ask, and he's still relatively young, and I know Scott Frost also is, but I'm going to go with Frost riding that hot hand and taking advantage when he has that momentum. So, Scott Frost to Nebraska. Next up, Texas A&M, another former Big 12 team who, listen, Kevin Sumlin, at the time we're recording this, he's their head coach. They have a head coach. But if that opens up, if it indeed opens up, Texas A&M feels like a good fit. I'm going to go, I have it right down here, Chad Morris.
Yeah?
Who's done a fantastic job at SMU. He comes from that similar offensive background. I don't believe Texas A&M should do the opposite and go after a big defensive coach. That doesn't necessarily work. I think you go after the best option. He's recruited Texas. I think his offense is proven to work in a big, big conference. I think it's a natural fit. He will find quarterbacks. He will develop quarterbacks. You remember, going back to Deshaun Watson and Taj Boyd, this is somebody who has put these guys into enormously good situations. Chad Morris for A&M.
Me for A&M, I think you stay in the state of Texas as well. I think you go Frank Wilson at UTSA for a couple reasons. One reason, and it's a little bit troubling kind of about the landscape of college football, a 2015 study by FootballScoop.com found that dating back to 2000, 29 black FBS head coaches have changed jobs. Only 5 of them have had black successors. Charlie Strong became the 6th earlier this year when he took over at USF. I think that is something that needs to change in college football. I understand you want to go opposites when you have a coaching change, but I think Texas A&M can make a stand, can take a stand, and take a guy that I believe has qualified himself for a big job. Frank Wilson is a hot name at UTSA. He comes from LSU. He can recruit that footprint, that Texas footprint,
Gulf,
and the Louisiana footprint. You can go in there and battle LSU for some kids there. And he's got the Roadrunners on the ascent. So I think I'll take Frank.
Always impressive when a coach wins at a place that's young and very difficult to win at, which he's done at UTSA.
But the other thing is, you bring in not a Texas native, but a guy who can endear himself to high school coaches in Texas, because that is a massive deal. It's one of the things that was a stumbling block for Charlie Strong at Texas. So I think you check off some boxes with Frank Wilson.
Okay, fair enough. And our final school is UCLA. Snake UCLA. What do you have?
I think I'm going to go Dino Babers there.
Oh, honestly. I like that pick.
Babers coached there under Carl Durrell as an assistant. He understands UCLA. He understands that job.
04 to 07, I believe. Yeah.
I think UCLA is a sleeping giant job.
Okay.
Because of where it is more than anything else. It's not like you can't get players to go to LA.
Right.
It's not like you can't get players to go to UCLA. Josh Rose and Jalen Phillips, those are 2 of the best recruits in their respective recruiting classes. There's no problems there with getting talent. There is a problem with USC just across town, and I get that.
Right.
Even if USC gets the first pick of the litter, the guys that USC, they can only sign 25 of them. The guys that USC may not get, I think UCLA can capitalize on, and then UCLA can assert its own self on the recruiting trail, as they have shown. And you can make some inroads in the Pac-12 South, and
and UCLA recruits all of the West Coast. They recruit Texas. They recruit Louisiana. It is a big brand name in terms of, if you're from Texas, do you want to go to UCLA and live in, Westwood? Sure, absolutely. That's not a bad life. I'm going to go Brian Harsin here, who a lot of people had. Brian Harsin.
Can he go Hollywood?
I think so, yes. He's been a head coach now at multiple schools on the FBS level, now at Boise State, was at Arkansas State, was in Texas, so he has recruiting relationships everywhere, has been on the West Coast. After kind of a slow start for Boise State, he's been pretty good there overall, but this year they're getting better and better throughout the year. They just beat Colorado State. I really do like Brian Harsin as somebody. Chris Peterson got all this attention when he was at Boise State along the West Coast and turned it down. I think Brian Harsin is a name who could take advantage of having that negotiating leverage if he is a name that comes up if UCLA and Jim Mora part ways. So I'm going to go Brian Harsin there. Which of our picks do you feel like of those 5 schools is the most realistic? If you had to bet American dollars on a match of anybody you or I chose, who would it be?
Dan, if I had to bet American dollars on one of those jobs, I think it might be Scott Frost in Nebraska.
Okay.
Just because of the very public flirtation that's already happened, the when mama calls type thing.
Sure.
We kind of took some chances with some of our picks and kind of went some different directions with some of our picks. But I think if we want to ground things in realism, I think Frost to Nebraska is a thing that makes sense because Frost will also bring a niche.
Sure.
And I talked about needing a niche.
Sure. Who did you take for Tennessee?
I took Bobby Petrino.
I'm going to go with that. I'm going to bet American dollars on weirdness in Tennessee.
I love how we both took each other's picks.
I just wanted to have fun with Tennessee fans, and that would burn it all down. That would be wonderful. All right, give us your picks for those 5 jobs, any jobs that are or are not open. What would make sense in your mind? We'll keep this conversation going in the comments. For Richard, my name is Dan. We'll see you soon.